So guys, the crypto markets are trading sideways with the huge event that happened today with the Fed talking about rate cuts. Right now, there is still a lot of uncertainty with how unemployment and also inflation is looking. So right now, we are not seeing rate cuts, but there is still a lot of talks about rate cuts happening in 2025. There is still talks about the trade war that's happening with China and the US. And right now, we still are hearing that there is developments, but then we're hearing that there's not development. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets right now, guys, and that's why everything is trading sideways. Everyone's anticipating exactly what's going to be happening and is waiting for another update. Today, I want to walk you guys through exactly what happened with the Fed meeting and the rate cuts and exactly the news and what everyone is talking about. I also want to talk about the price action on Bitcoin and Ethereum and currently what we're seeing and exactly what you need to be aware of. But if you're new to my channel, check out the rest of my content. I keep you guys updated on the day-to-day events, price action on Bitcoin, altcoins, how liquidity is shifting, and exactly what you need to be aware of so that you can position yourself correctly. Guys, we were anticipating a lot of movement in the markets with exactly what we were seeing yesterday, a huge rip up, and now exactly the sideways price action after the huge events from the Fed. Like how I said, we didn't get the answer that we wanted. We didn't see rate cuts like Trump wants to see, and as a result, we're feeling a lot of uncertainty. Today, I want to walk you guys through all of those different perspectives, what was actually said, and how it's having an effect on the markets. Let's jump straight into it. So guys, before we jump into the huge events that happened today with the Fed decision and the summary and everything, I do want to walk through the price action around Bitcoin and Ethereum and the rest of the markets. Right now, guys, Bitcoin did see a huge rip up prior to the Fed decision today, which I talked about yesterday. I felt like a lot of people were front running the markets, anticipating a huge news events, rate cuts, but right now we're seeing a lot of sideways price action, chopping pretty much based off of the uncertainty in the markets. Right now, Ethereum as well, after having that crazy rip up, we are seeing a massive deviation in sideways price action currently. Right now, we're still sitting at above 1800, which is great to see, but if we start to deviate much more, then we could potentially be back at that support zone we were testing prior to all of these news events and everything that's currently happening. Now, right now, the total 3 chart, guys, is pretty much just following the price action around Ethereum. Every time we see a huge rip up, we can start to see price action move back into altcoins, but once we start to see Ethereum and overall the market's not performing quite well, that's whenever we start to see these deviations and testing specific zones. So keeping up with the price action around Ethereum is super key, and Crypto Intelligence X talks about exactly what we're seeing with the price action around Ethereum and what's anticipated. But right now, guys, Bitcoin dominance is shooting up. And why are we looking at Bitcoin dominance, guys? This lets us know where liquidity is shifting and how investors are hedging against exactly everything that's happening. Whenever we start to see crazy price action around Bitcoin, everyone starts allocating back into Bitcoin because this is where we start to see most of the price action. You can see in the USDT dominance chart, we saw some massive deviations because a lot of people were anticipating the move for Bitcoin, for Ethereum, and altcoins as well. So a lot of people got out of stable coins and started allocating into these bigger assets, but we are starting to see a little bit of a rip up back into these stable coins, back into also a little bit of a deviation just based off of the uncertainty. Some people believe that we could be deviating much more. Other people think that this is already going to be the start of altcoin season, so they want to expose themselves. But the big event that happened today, guys, that is causing all of the stir and price action and liquidity and everything is the Fed decision that happened today. A lot of people were wanting to see rate cuts, but we did not see the rate cuts. And overall, I want to give you guys the summary of exactly what was said and what's going on. So prior to the huge event with the Fed decision that happened at 9 a.m. At 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, we saw it appears that Trump has begun a press conference on tariffs and trade 5 minutes before the Fed decision is set to be announced. Over the last month, President Trump has been calling for Fed Chair Powell to cut rates and look for ways to fire him. Is this a coincidence? And overall, giving you guys a summary of the Fed decision. 1, the Fed leaves rates unchanged for the 3rd straight meeting. No rate cuts. 2, Fed says inflation remains somewhat elevated, which is not good. This has a little bit of uncertainty around inflation. 3, uncertainty about outlook has increased further. So overall, just uncertainty overall around the perspectives is not looking too good. 4, risk of higher unemployment and inflation has risen. So guys, with how unemployment and inflation is looking, the Fed is kind of waiting and wanting to see exactly what's going to be happening moving further into Q2. Overall, 5, Fed is attentive to risk to both sides of their mandate, so just pretty much teeter-tottering. And 6, Fed appears to see higher risk of stagflation ahead. The Fed pause continues despite Trump's call for cuts. And overall, the Kobesi letter sums it up for anyone that doesn't really understand all this. He says, it appears the Fed sees both higher inflation and higher unemployment ahead. Therefore, they are holding off on cutting rates to see which part of their dual mandate spikes further. So, uncertainty remains. And guys, this is not really good, but overall, it's good that we've already passed this event. So, we have something to look forward to. But with the talks about how inflation is looking and unemployment and overall the uncertainty outlook is increased further, this just points to the fact that we really don't know exactly where we're going to be headed. As a result, the S&P, guys, has been dropping very, very significantly with the initial reactions and exactly this trade war that's going on with US-China, and Trump also adding that he is not looking for so many tariff exemptions. Going more into it, President Trump says China should reassess who asked for trade policy meeting. It appears Trump is signaling that China came to the table first, while China is saying the opposite. So right now we're hearing all of these developments with the trade war. I'm keeping you guys updated with all this information, but then there's pullbacks on information, there's recalls, and then people are saying this happened, and this side was actually initiating the conversation. And this is where everyone's wondering what the hell is going on. Right now, in terms of Fed cuts and interest rate cuts, right now everyone's anticipating a 25 basis point fall rather than what we were expecting before, guys, with around that 50 basis points. So overall, guys, this is calling towards Trump's initial say of just immediate rate cuts as fast as possible. The Kobesi letter keeps summing everything, guys, up as the talks were progressing. So this is where I'm gonna keep giving you guys the perspectives on what was said. Now, overall, there is more stuff around inflation, the tariffs, and everything that's being expected, but I want to go ahead and sum it all up in these next few tweets. Overall, Fed Chair Powell says Fed does not need to be in a hurry to adjust interest rates. There is so much we don't know. We're in a good position to wait and see, Powell says. So he wants to wait and see, which I said earlier. Breaking. Fed Chair Powell says President Trump calling for the Fed to cut rates doesn't affect our job at all. So he's not worried about Trump trying to push him to cut the rates. Next, Fed Chair Powell was asked if it's appropriate for the Fed to cut rates at all in 2025. He says, there are cases in which it would be appropriate to cut rates, and there are cases where it wouldn't. The Fed is not rolling out zero interest rate cuts in 2025. So that is quite bullish, point to the fact that we could be seeing rate cuts in 2025. He's saying that, in certain situations we could be seeing it. So hopefully we are in the situation that, we don't want to see the unemployment and inflation shoot through the roof, but we need to see rate cuts so that we can see an ease in policy and markets and loans and everything else, so that liquidity can move, guys, and everyone can actually start getting super bullish on everything. Overall, though, to sum everything up, guys, with the rate cut decisions, inflation, unemployment, stagflation, and all this stuff being said and uncertainty, summary of today's Fed decision and press conference: wait and see. And guys, this is what we have been doing for the past few months, and I know you are freaking tired of waiting and seeing, but this is where, guys, literally the people that hold and wait for that price action are going to make a good amount of money, and the people that do not have the patience are going to capitulate their bags and miss out on crazy gains. I recommend you guys go follow the Kobesi letter. Of course, you're following me, so I appreciate it. I keep you guys updated with all this information, key information that you need to be aware of, and the Kobesi letter gives us a lot of great day-to-day information, not only around economies in multiple markets and multiple countries, but also the key events happening within the United States in this trade war that's currently going on. So go follow the Kobesi letter, learn a little bit more about economics and exactly what's fueling all of this price action. Right now, guys, we're waiting to see the price action around Ethereum start to move. Crypto Intelligence talks about it. It says still no move on Ethereum, trading in a very tight range. And And we talked about it, you know, with exactly what we're seeing with this specific chart, with price action, and overall exactly the high time frame resistance we're seeing with the S&P 500, and how it wasn't looking too good for ETH to break out. But like how I said, we have been seeing a little bit of positive price action, but if we start to deviate further, then we're going to go back to that support zone that we saw, and we could be deviating much lower if we start to see Bitcoin dominance shoot back up and altcoins get squeezed much more. Overall, Crypto Mitch now gives his perspectives on exactly what's currently going on in the markets and what you should be doing and how you should be, you know, thinking. Overall, he says pretty good accumulation taking place on altcoin markets before the next leg upwards, and this was prior to all of the Fed decisions and everything like that. So of course, people were front running the markets, getting super bullish. I told you guys that yesterday, which is why you need to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned. But jumping more into it, he says, my expectations are extreme volatility between the announcement and Jerome Powell and his presentation. I wouldn't trade it. The real move comes afterwards on Bitcoin and Ethereum. QE is coming. And, you know, I pretty much agree. There was a lot of volatility in the markets, pumps and dumps. But right now, everything is just trading sideways. And I guess now we're waiting to see that move on Bitcoin and Ethereum. He says, again, news isn't important. It's about the tone and the presentation that Powell will provide. First initial move isn't the actual move of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I agree with this, and I also disagree with this, because at the end of the day, the news is important. If we have developments around the trade war, around rate cuts, around anything that is super bullish for liquidity, then of course it's going to have an effect on the markets. And tonality is also super important, which is why some people are like, oh, the Fed, Jerome Powell doesn't want to cut rates, Trump is calling for rate cuts, right now all these things look uncertainty, what's going to happen? And this is where you got to draw your own perspective, guys. Some people are still super bullish, like Crypto Mitch now. Others are a little bit more skeptical, which is Benjamin Cohen's perspective. This is where, guys, I like to give you guys multiple perspectives, not just everyone feeling super bullish, but also the different perspectives on why we could be seeing deviations before we see a huge rip up. Overall, Benjamin Cohen has been talking about Bitcoin dominance like it determines his life. It's freaking crazy how much he talks about Bitcoin dominance, but it's because it really points to the fact, guys, when altcoins actually get the liquidity that they need. On this chart, I show you every day, but if we were to pull it out, guys, and look at the daily time frame, we can actually go back and see where the peak of this chart was in previous markets, guys, and see exactly what is going to be, you know, similar in terms of the peak in, you know, the percentage for Bitcoin dominance. You can see, guys, once we zoom all the way out, you can see, guys, for the past 2 years, Bitcoin dominance has been on a crazy rip up. And prior to that, I know this is quite complicated because we're really zooming in on this now. You can see that Bitcoin overall dominance had a crazy run before having a crazy deviation and giving the liquidity that it needed to the total 3 chart, and just pointing to the fact that it got the liquidity that they needed after it peaked out, after Bitcoin saw its time in the sun. And that's what I want you guys to focus on right now. That is what I'm focusing on in everything that I do, guys, because I want to time everything correctly. Okay, this is getting a little complicated, but overall, you can see my perspective. I'm trying to zoom out and show you guys not only what we're seeing currently, but in previous cycles, and you need to have that correlation. Benjamin Cohen goes on to say, with QT continuing, it seems like the alt/Bitcoin pairs will continue dropping, and Bitcoin dominance will likely go to 66% very soon. Alt/Bitcoin pairs will likely drop to that 0.32%, currently 0.34, with an eventual target of 0.25. So Benjamin Cohen is pretty much saying that altcoins and everything are about to start taking a huge hit, and we're going to see Bitcoin rip up and Bitcoin dominance hit that 66% zone. If this is true, guys, altcoins are going to get squeezed, and if you can understand this perspective, then maybe it's good to dollar cost average but not throw your whole load and think altcoin season's automatically going to start. Now, swiping everything to the side, guys, I gave you a lot of good information in terms of the Fed decision that happened today. Exactly what you need to be aware of. Don't try to draw more conclusions from it. We didn't see any Fed cuts. We're waiting and we're seeing. We got to see exactly what's going to keep happening with the economy and the trade war. There's also mixed talks about the trade war and exactly what's happening, who's initiating the conversations, and if there's actual developments. On top of that, we're seeing the price action in the markets trade sideways right now, which is not too good, but this is where, exactly like Jerome Powell said, we need to wait and see, guys. I know a lot of y'all have been waiting for altcoin season to happen. Altcoins are pumping and they're dumping. They're trading sideways. and it's because we're waiting for liquidity to move back properly. Like how I said, that Bitcoin dominance chart and that total 3 chart speak facts. They show you where liquidity was at peak for Bitcoin, and then when everything just shifted back in to Ethereum and altcoins. It's how liquidity shifts, guys. You need to be aware of that chart of how overall liquidity moves, because if you're aware of how liquidity moves, you're aware that altcoins are going to see their time in the sun. You just have to be patient. But if you're new to my channel, check out the rest of my content, guys. I keep you guys updated on the day-to-day events, price action on Bitcoin, altcoins, Ethereum, how exactly liquidity is shifting, and what you need to be aware of so that you can position yourself correctly. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market, a lot of mixed positions, mixed sentiment. But guys, this is where I just show up every day. I keep you guys updated with what you need to be aware of. I'm investing in low cap, really good projects that are building for the future and are honestly going to be doing some crazy things in the next few months. I plan to do a full crypto portfolio breakdown this weekend, and I'm going to keep you guys updated throughout the week with more events that are actually happening throughout the week. So I want to keep you guys updated with all that information. If you're new to my channel, drop me a comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of my content. Let me know what you guys think of the decision today with the Fed. Do you think we need to see rate cuts? Do you think altcoin season is already going to happen in Q2? Overall, I'd love to hear everyone's perspective, the altcoins you're buying, and exactly what you think is going to happen. But overall, though, I'm going to keep you guys updated with all the day-to-day events, price action. We're getting closer to getting monetized on this YouTube channel, so make sure you guys stay tuned. Share the channel with anyone that's trying to progress in the markets, and just stay updated with everything that's going on. But hopefully you guys do not capitulate your bags, and stay tuned. I drop day-to-day content, so hopefully I catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.